We're all sold this big fantasy about sex, right? But what happens when the reality is, well, kind of gross? This is a story about expectations, about conditioning, and about how our bodies can learn things without us even realizing it. Let's dive in. Everything started with this message. Just a raw, totally honest confession that completely challenges what we're told a first time is supposed to feel like. It's confusing, right? It's a vulnerable. And honestly, it's the perfect way for us to understand a much bigger issue. So, the person who wrote that quote, he's a 32-year-old man. He used to describe himself as an incel, but after years of working on himself, he finally had this sexual encounter he thought he'd always wanted. But the reality? It was nothing like the fantasy. It felt weird, he actually felt queasy, and it just left him feeling completely broken. And that brings us to our first section, a gross first time. We're going to take a look at what happens when this deeply held fantasy just completely crashes into a messy, complicated reality. It creates a ton of confusion and a whole lot of anxiety. You can just imagine what's flooding his mind at this point. Questions like, is there something fundamentally wrong with me? Am I asexual? Have I, permanently damaged my body after all these years? I mean, these are heavy, scary questions that really get to the heart of the shame and confusion that can pop up after an experience like this. So to really understand what's going on, we have to deconstruct these powerful myths that, let's be honest, we've all been taught. So for our second section, the great sex myth, we're gonna see that so much of this problem isn't actually about the person, it's about the stories we're all told. Think about it. Our culture, movies, stories, you name it, sells us this idea of sex as some magical, perfect, life-changing event. But the reality for so many people, especially the first time, it's awkward, it can be strange, or even just unfulfilling. And that huge gap between what we expect and what happens, that's where a lot of the psychological stress really starts. The source material gives us a much healthier way to think about this. It's called the cooking analogy. I mean, you wouldn't expect to be a gourmet chef the very first time you walk into a kitchen, would you? No! You'd expect to make a mess, maybe burn something. Sex is a skill. It takes time, it takes communication, and it takes experimentation to figure out what works. It's not supposed to be some perfect performance. Okay, so now we're going to see how this cultural myth can actually become a physical reality. In Section 3, the conditioning trap, we're going to look at the science of how years and years of habit can physically train our bodies to respond in really, really specific ways. So this is the key term from the source that explains the physical side of the problem: death grip syndrome. Now, this isn't some formal medical diagnosis, but man, is it a powerful description of a real thing. After years of masturbating in one specific way, with a certain pressure, a certain speed, maybe with no lubrication, the body's nervous system literally learns to expect that exact stimulation to get there. Just look at the difference here. When you're solo, the stimulation is often high pressure, no lubrication, and super consistent. Partnered sex is, well, it's the total opposite of all of that. So the body is suddenly in this completely foreign environment. It's like it trained for a marathon, but now it's being asked to swim and it just has no idea how to respond. And that physical mismatch, it kicks off this absolutely devastating psychological cycle. It starts with the body just not responding. Then that leads to panic and worry. What's wrong with me? This anxiety then causes real physical problems like losing an erection. And that feeling of failure creates this deep shame, which makes you even more anxious for the next time. It's a total self-fulfilling prophecy. But here's the good news, okay? The really good news is that just like the body can be conditioned, it can be reconditioned. This is not permanent. So in our fourth section, Rewiring Your Body, we're going to walk through the practical steps to start rewiring those neural pathways. The whole process starts with some solo retraining, and it's surprisingly straightforward. First, start using lubricant. This helps your body get used to a different, much more sensitive sensation. Second, and this is the hard part, you have to consciously use a much, much looser group. The goal is to retrain the nerves to respond to way less intense stimulation. And I gotta be real with you here, this is a critical thing to remember. When you start this process, it is going to feel wrong. It will feel unsatisfying. You're gonna wanna go back to the old familiar way because that's what your body's conditioned to want. But sticking with that discomfort is the only way to build new pathways. That feeling of, this isn't working, is actually a sign that the process is working. Of course, this journey is so much easier with a supportive partner, which thankfully the guy in our story had. Communication is everything. Being open about what's going on, being patient, and exploring all the other ways to be intimate that aren't just about the main event is so crucial. It becomes a shared journey of discovery, not some high-stakes performance test. So for our final section, let's bring all this together, because the ultimate solution isn't just a physical trick. It's a huge shift in perspective. It's about throwing out those old myths and embracing the idea that sex is a skill. You just can't undo 18 years of conditioning in one night. It's impossible. It takes patience, it takes intention, and it takes some self-compassion. You have to actively and consciously start the process of teaching your body a whole new language, one small step at a time. And this leads us to a final, really thought-provoking question. In that rush to explain a negative experience, it can be so tempting to just grab onto a label like asexual. And while that identity is absolutely valid for many people, the source here suggests that maybe we should be careful not to jump to a label too soon. Could it be that what feels like a fixed identity is actually just the result of a bad experience in a conditioned body? It's something worth thinking about before closing the door on other possibilities. So the big takeaway is this. Sex isn't a finish line you cross or a test you have to pass. It's a practice. It's like learning an instrument or, learning to cook. It's something you cultivate over time with patience and with curiosity. And that right there might just be the most liberating realization of all.